Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on the globe. Welcome back to the Junius Maltby channel. Thank you for joining us today as we discuss some of the headlines that we've picked out to talk about. And please join the conversation down below once we're finished with the video. You know, we've got a theme on the channel where we discuss gold a lot. The principles, the fundamentals. There's videos in the archives you can go look at discussing the ideology of investing in precious metals. We have an archive of videos that are speeches and writings on why gold is valuable, from everyone from Antal Fouquet to Alan Greenspan, different things and video you can explore in that video. One of today's headlines is titled "Money as the Greater Depression Deepens" by Doug Casey. Puts out some good material, and I found this on the International Man website. Let's briefly read through this portion of the article. I'm not going to cover the entire thing here today, but this central part of the article talks about money. And it says, money. If you can't define a word precisely, clearly, and quickly, that's proof you don't understand what you're talking about, as well as you might. Here we talk a lot about money, so it only makes sense to know the subject completely. So what is money? The proper definition of money is something that functions as 1. A medium of exchange, and 2. A store of value. Government fiat currencies can, and currently do, function as money. But they are far from ideal. What, then, are the characteristics of a good money? Aristotle listed them in the 4th century BC. A good money must be all of the following. Durable. A good money shouldn't fall apart in your pocket, nor evaporate when you aren't looking. It should be indestructible. This is why we don't use fruit for money. Divisible. A good money needs to be convertible into larger and smaller pieces without losing its value, to fit a transaction of any size. This is why we don't use things like porcelain for money. Half a Ming vase isn't worth much. Consistent. A good money is something that always looks the same so that it's easy to recognize, each piece identical to the next. This is why we don't use things like oil paintings for money. Each painting, even by the same artist, of the same size and composed of the same materials, is unique. Convenient. A good money packs a lot of value into a small package and is highly portable. This is why we don't use water for money. As essential as it is, just imagine how much you'd have to deliver to pay for a new house, not to mention all the problems you'd have with the escrow. Intrinsically valuable. A good money is something many people want or can use. This is critical to money functioning as a means of exchange. Even if I'm not a jeweler, I know that someone, somewhere, wants gold and will take it in exchange for something else of value to me. This is why we don't or shouldn't use things like scraps of paper for money, no matter how impressive the inscriptions upon them might be. Gold is uniquely well qualified for use as money. No other substance meets those 5 characteristics so well. Gold's main use, contrary to the belief of some, isn't in jewelry or dentistry, although those uses are important. Its main use has almost always been as money. But gold's ancillary uses are growing in importance because, given its physical characteristics, it's a high-tech metal. Of the 92 naturally occurring elements, it's the most resistant to chemical reaction, the most ductile, and the most malleable of all the elements. It's also highly reflective and an exceptional conductor of both heat and electricity. There are lots of other advantages to gold as money. It's by far the most private kind of money. Gold coins, unlike paper currency, don't even carry serial numbers. That makes it truly untraceable. At current prices, it's more portable than cash, even in the form of $100 bills. It doesn't retain traces of drugs, as does currency, which makes it less liable to arbitrary confiscation. Although efforts have been made to counterfeit gold bars with tungsten filler and such, it's much easier to authenticate than currency. And it's becoming increasingly apparent to all the world that paper currencies are nothing but floating abstractions. They will not hold value. Paradoxically, gold is now far more useful as money than it was at $35, and becoming more useful than $100 bills. That will be even truer as it goes to 5,000, quote my current guess according to the author, in terms of today's dollars. Editor's note: most people have no idea what really happens when a currency collapses, let alone how to prepare. Owning gold is essential, but there's more to do to make sure your wealth doesn't get wiped out in the coming financial tidal wave. How will you protect your savings in the event of a currency crisis? So, this article does bring together several points that are found in a really good speech that I've put here on the channel in the past by the former Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan. If you get a chance, you go find that video. I'll try to include a link somewhere in the tab or comment section of this video to make it easier for viewers to go off and watch that video at the closing of this one. But gold's not going anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Despite what you're told, despite what the media says, despite all the negative press from the mainstream media whack jobs, gold's here to stay. It's been here for 70 centuries. It's going to be here for 70 more. Okay, it's always going to have value. The only monies that have ever gone to zero and no longer exist and are no longer used as money are fiat currencies issued by the state, by governments for the most part. Yeah, we don't use seashells and beads anymore, but gold has been currency since the dawn of man, and it still holds value. Its largest use is as money. That's why hedge funds and central banks sit on stockpiles of gold that are unimaginable to you and I. That's why the Queen of England peruses rooms full of gold bars, the weight of which, if they fell over the pallet, would crush you to death. That's how much gold. And it's all money. It's held and it's backing currencies. It backs the euro in a way at times as a portion. You know, the euro sits on the EU sits on a significant stockpile of gold. My point here in closing out this particular article is that gold's not going anywhere. It's always going to have value. It's never going to zero, in spite of what people try to tell us, in spite of what the media tries to make you believe. And in my opinion, it will sooner than later hold more value than many of the vehicles and places people like to park money, and it will be a safer place to hold your wealth and to carry on your legacy, your dynasty, to preserve that which you've worked for. That's really how this, I guess you could say, the root, the incipient idea behind this channel was on preserving your wealth to the end, passing it on, how to save, how to preserve your wealth. I never started this channel off as a way to show people how to invest, how to make millions of dollars and get rich quick schemes. No, this was how to store your labor, how to lock it away when you worked hard and secure it in an area that I felt it would not be eroded, destroyed, and taken by the powers that issue currency. And gold does that. It preserves your wealth, preserves that which you worked for. And it's not going anywhere. And some of the same principles that apply to gold also apply, as you know, to silver and other precious metals. But if you look here at this next article we're going to talk about, it says that the future is uncertain and gold is the most effective insurance against that. As fears grow about outlook for the global economy, long-term attraction of gold remains. As central banks race to devalue currency, private individuals are buying record amounts of gold. We recently covered that. Gold is simply the best insurance against inflation or deflation. Editors note the tragic events in Paris, terrorism, and war throughout the world show geopolitical risk remains high. These risks will likely impact economies and financial markets, and will see continuing safe haven demand for gold. Gold remains the best insurance for a crisis. To this day, and it always has been, it always will be. They're not going to change that. You cannot change that attribute to gold. That's like saying you want to make water less wet. You want to make it drier. It's inherent in the element. Water's a liquid. Well, gold's the best insurance for a crisis as far as money and storage of wealth. Done. You can't argue that point. Okay. People would like to throw, oh, diamonds and this, that. We've talked about that. They're not. Diamonds are not. De Beers of London sits on vaults of diamonds. It's enough for every human to have a coffee mug full. We all know that. It's a created market. You know, a diamond in the rough sitting on the street looks like a piece of broken stone, crystal. It takes a jeweler to cut it to make it valuable. They can synthetically produce diamonds all day now. Diamonds don't have the value that people are led to believe they do, nor does art, nor does any other of these supposed wealth safe havens. Gold's the best. Period. This is why gold's not going anywhere. Ever. You're not going to see gold disappear. You're not going to see it go to zero. I got to keep reiterating that because it seems like so often that's one of the arguments that people use, that it's going to be basically one day there's going to be this great global awakening and humans are going to realize something like, oh, it's just metal. Gold's just a piece of metal. And we're going to toss it away and forget that it exists. And that, unfortunately for the people who believe it, this false idea anyway, that's never going to happen. That's a false reality. Okay, well, in closing, we're going to just talk about these one last point here for the silver hounds out there, the silver hawks, guys that love their silver. I know there's a ton of you that watch the channel, and I too like to purchase silver on occasion. But Silver Eagles sales are nearing a record level this year. As you've seen in the news, I'm sure if you watch these things like I do a little bit from time to time, authorized purchasers ordered a total of 1,332,500 Silver Eagles from November 4th to November 11th. That's a lot of silver for just that time frame right there. If that rate keeps up, the record will be broken in less than 2 weeks, provided rationing doesn't get in the way. So, as we saw earlier in today's video, gold demand through the roof. People are buying bars and coins like never before. Not since the time of the financial collapse. Silver flying off the shelves, being sold in droves. What is steering this behavior? Why are so many acting in this way in common? You know, there's not some underlying communication taking place outside of, you know, like these little videos and blogs here and there. People see something, people know something, and they're acting on it. They're identifying, predicting, deciding, and acting. And they're making decisions based on what they're observing, and what they're observing is stimulating them to purchase precious metals. So ask yourself, what are you seeing that stimulates you to purchase precious metals? What are these people seeing? If you're not purchasing them, are you seeing the same things, or are you just ignoring it? Or do you have false hope? As I said in the last closing of the last video, you know, you can have hope in one hand and excrement in the other, or try to take some excrement into the other and watch which hand fills up first. Hope's not going to get you anywhere. False reality is not going to get you anywhere. Believing that gold is going to disappear is not going to get you anywhere. So if you believe in these false realities, you got to change that mindset. You got to change what you're thinking and reevaluate it somehow. But gold's not going anywhere. I can't reiterate that enough. Gold's here to stay. Gold will not disappear. It's always, always, always going to hold value. All right, know that, be confident in it, keep stacking, ignore the media lies, and just realize that stacking metals, preparing for possible financial downturns and economic catastrophes and currency devaluations is never a bad idea. Keep strong. Thanks for tuning in to the Junius Maltby channel once again and joining us for this off-the-wall, bizarre discussion. Thanks. Have a great day.